This is Entheogen. Elevate the conversation. I'm Joe.
I'm Brad.
And I'm Kevin.
Please support Entheogen by making a donation on Patreon. Become a patron for as little as $1. Pledge just $3 or more and get early access to new episodes, plus exclusive patron-only features. Head over to entheogenshow.com and click on support. And thanks again.
Well, this happens every time. I feel like, not to awkwardly interrupt, but I'd really love to do the intro and get into it, because it happens every time where we have all this great conversation before we actually do the intro, and it's fun to capture the organic magic. So, Joe, can I put you on the spot to just tee it up, and we'll get back into it?
Exactly. Great call. All right. Welcome, David Bronner, to the next episode of Entheogen.
Yeah.
Very happy to have you with us. David Bronner is the CEO, the Cosmic Engagement Officer of Dr. Bronner's Magic Soaps. And it's been a real honor to have you join us here. And David, thanks so much for all the efforts you've been putting in for all these years in the psychedelic field. It's really, I mean, we all appreciate it. I think I can speak for everyone in the field. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. So we were talking a little bit as we were warming up here about early days of Burning Man, and I just was reminded of a conversation we had with Earth and Fire Airwood in the early days of this show.
Yep.
And they were sharing a story about how when they first started going, people, and this was like in the 90s, people were complaining like, man, like Burning Man's not the same anymore. I don't know everyone here anymore. It's like, so I mean, it just shows you the scale. It just is always shifting. It's a whole different thing now, really. I mean, if it's even what it was 2 years ago anymore, it's a whole new thing.
Yeah, no, totally, man. And actually, Eric Davis was just down, and I don't know if you've ever read his essay on Burning Man.
Oh, okay, I should check that out. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a Nomad Code, and it's like the best writing on Burning Man ever, and it's just super, super great. And whatever. I've took a couple years. I think I hated on the burn like the most, like in 2011 for whatever reason. Like then, I was just like, there's a bunch of like entitled people partying in the desert, no permit, kind of got that, all that. And and then it was 2012. I was like, if I had talked to one more person about 2012, so I took 2012 off, But then, realized it's like, okay, like I'm doing all the fun things around town here, and it's like, there is no city that compares to Black Rock at all. Right. Whatever is bumming you out, dude, just go somewhere else, dude, because it's like the most awesome city on the planet. And, and just like it's a soul epic, it's just so amazing. And
it's really its own thing. There's nothing like it,
My first year was 2011, so sorry.
Whatever, man, it's great, and I had plenty of awesome times. Everyone, it's always like a mix of, it's like an emotional roller coaster. I've never done a Himalayan trek, but compare it to that or something.
Wow.
It's a little different. I have done that as well, and it's slightly different. Both very worthwhile.
Degrees of emotional whatever, I don't know,
right,
back-to-back psychedelic extremes.
Totally. People who haven't been probably think it's like one note, it's like it's just hedonism, it's just like pure enjoyment or something. But I just remember like realizing my first couple of burns, like there's crying involved, like that's
it's the whole range, man.
It's the range, exactly. It's great.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the first things,
it's like one big ceremonial container,
Totally.
My first, so in 2011, one of the biggest things that struck me about the whole experience that I was pretty overwhelmed by was gifting. I know it's one of the principles, but it wasn't until I went, and I was given so much everywhere I went, every day, every night. I was just bombarded with generosity and people being welcoming me into their camp. And when I came back in 2012, I brought a decent amount of liquid LSD, and I offered it. So Monday night at our camp after dinner, I was like, no pressure, just kind of talked to everybody individually and said, a couple of us are gonna, have this experience after dinner for the night, and you're welcome to join. Everyone said yes. So there were 30 of us that all set out for the night on. And the way our camp kind of grew was a bit organic, like one friend knew another friend. And we all went out and had this incredible bonding experience very early in the week. And at the end of the week, we sort of gathered around in a circle and people talked about what one of the most important experiences they had the whole week. And so many people mentioned it. And talking about like the ceremony, it's now become an annual tradition. And Joe and Kevin and I, along with a couple of other campmates, have formalized it a bit to create a safe space to introduce people to the camp and to the experience. And it's become a real incredible joy of something to look forward to year over year. But yeah, just the whole gifting thing, when you think of it and you see it amongst the other 11 principles and then experiencing it. And, I wouldn't have planned to do that, but it just sort of happened organically.
Right on. Yeah. And so many things occur right there. But like my number one thing about LSD at the burn is it really integrates the city. You really feel like you just integrate it, and just really feel it. And then number two, I feel like that is kind of the best gift like you can give, is to psychedelically kind of open yourself and like pour your energies into the city and the community. It's like, I just feel like, obviously we give the gifts of ourselves in a lot of different, more concrete ways, but that energetic way of just really kind of opening yourself. And and then I was just remembered my like first burn. I remember I got there and it's like, oh, Maps is here. It was like 2005. And, and of course I, admired Maps from afar, and we had been, we'd sued DEA, or, DEA had tried to, eliminate the industrial hemp industry. After Bush came to power and after 9/11, they went nuts on hemp and medical marijuana. And so we got this big old fight, and MAPS was fighting to break the El Soli monopoly for, government weed. Like the only weed for research was a super crappy, STEMmy, seedy crap weed from University of Mississippi. And Rick was fighting hard to, in parallel when we're, fighting to keep hemp alive. And, but anyway, so I met up with them, and, I went over and I heard about Sanctuary. So there was a whole presentation on Sanctuary, which was the precursor to Zendo. And it was like a safe space. You're having an overwhelming psychedelic experience, and, you just need to go somewhere quiet and, just kind of do some work and ground out and, have a successful experience. That's not like a kind of open-ended, traumatic, unresolved thing, but you can actually kind of come out the other side, and it's really positive. And, so I heard all about this, and somebody gifted me asked Rick, hey, who's got LSD around here? And he's, and all of a sudden someone like dropped, I didn't see him. I think it was Coco, but it dropped like a vial of L on me. And, and I was like really, bonded with Rick, and I'm like, Rick, we're fighting hemp, but look, LSD is the end game here. It's like, that would be my joke when a reporter, I never actually said this to a reporter, but when they called me up about hemp, it's like, oh, isn't this a stalking horse for marijuana, the camel's nose under the tent and all that. Right. And I'd be like, well, some of us, I actually, believe that we should need to end prohibition, but many in our coalition don't. We're just very single issue focused, blah, blah, blah. And the secret answer was, no, get it right. This is about LSD. This is about just getting all the way there and just landing some body blows. But I told Rick that's where we're going to go. So then go back to camp, and just kind of similarly, like, everyone's like, okay, it's like 12. At that point, our camp was this little camp struggle tent kind of next to the neighborhood. And we all like, hey, I got this rad LSD. And, and so we all dose up, except this one lady takes these mushroom chocolates, and we're like, I don't know, like an hour in, we're just like charging out on the playa, and just, that's coming up pretty hard. And she's really ill. And it turned out she was taking some antibiotics that were like totally contrary, just like not working well. So she's like kind of passing out on the playa, and we're like, oh man. I'm like, okay, well, I just heard about Sanctuary. We got to get her to Sanctuary. So we're just, like do this half-mile trek. Like she's basically dead weight, and like we're like, blazing on acid, like get her all the way over to Sanctuary. And I meet Rick for the second time. And now he's like, so I met Rick in his kind of official, like, drug policy warrior, Jedi working on the Death Star kind of role. But now I got to meet him in his, like, his aspirational role of being a psychedelic therapist someday, to like legalize and, become a psych. So I got to meet him in that role, the same day. And he was so sweet. And he's like, okay, bring her over here, and like, special cot. And he's like, oh, here's a bucket. And my friend like, just kind of purrs and just kind of calms down. And we're just all holding space inside. And just like, it was just this incredible energy and just really beautiful. remember giving my friend this like beautiful hug, and Rick's like, okay, you guys can go and just come back in the morning. Came back the next morning, and my friend was just like so ecstatic, and she's like, oh my God, Rick's an angel, he's so amazing. And she just had the most amazing experience.
Wow.
She was able to settle down into her experience, and yeah.
I almost want to have a difficult time, like just to have Rick help me out. It's almost worth it.
Yeah. Fake it. Like,
right. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
It's a great story.
Amazing.
Yeah.
One of my most surreal experiences, the burn, was when we got to interview Rick and Alex and Allison Gray at your camp. So big thanks to you for that, among many other things. But creating the space to make that happen was, man, that was surreal. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
They loved getting back together too. I mean, I think they started their organizations around a similar time, and MAPS was celebrating at that time just over, I think, 30 years, and COSM was celebrating a similar anniversary, and to be able to like foster that conversation and just put friends together, who've been like lifelong on this journey together, in different forms. Like I look at COSM, Alex and Allison Gray, as kind of bringing the spiritual aspect to this work, and of course, MAPS is the sort of medical therapeutic aspect. Burning Man is probably just overall the sort of recreational side of things. So having this like sort of like three-legged stool of a psychedelic focus was pretty fun. It was great.
Yeah, but watch out, like that party can turn into a temple pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's
it's the crime.
Not a clear separation.
It all goes together. Yeah,
totally.
And not right on. I wasn't like too aware of it, but yeah, like I guess there had been like a little bit of some feelings, but it was great to like have them all come back together. And that 2016 was the breakout year, and that was Reformation. So we always put foam in our camp name.
Yep.
It was the Da Vinci year, and so we were saying like Albert Hoffman's our modern day Da Vinci, and like we're it was like Renaissance man. And but then we're also talking about, it was an amazing theme that developed that year, because I was like kind of making this theme. We wanted to do this theme about regenerating culture with psychedelics and regenerating agriculture, like with regenerative agricultural, like soil-based method, in a way that, so we kind of bridge like the Eleusinian mysteries that, Albert Hoffman was this, all about, that experience, and recreating this reliable way of initiating society into the mysteries of life, birth, and love.
He stole the fire.
Yeah. Well, or it was channeled through him, or I don't know. Yeah. It was gifted or given to him. And, he always saw it as like he was kind of like almost, I don't know what you say, chosen or something. Like it came into the world at the same time nuclear weapons were. But he had that peculiar presentiment to resynthesize the LSD-25 from 6 years ago, like he had never even done that before.
Yeah, so lucky.
One of his 10,000 compounds that he
exactly, the accidental nature of it, and the discovery too. I always did that story, just the magnitude of his experience, the fact that he went back to it. Man, any other mortal human might have stayed away after that, first experience he had. But
he went
an accident.
He went to heaven and hell, or I guess hell first, then heaven, and then just losing your marbles on 250 mics, having no idea what's happening.
Right. Yeah. Being the first one ever, so there's no like basis for comparison. Like, hey, don't worry, like you'll come through this. Like there's no one that could even reassure him that it was going to be okay. He's the first.
Except for his neighbor, who was a physician, and like let him know he wasn't going to die, and gave him a glass of milk. Right. That's the story. And that's when he calmed down. And then we're kind of released into the world's first mystical LSD unity experience.
Amazing.
Oh, except it was not, because he said that the illusions, the kaikion, that the potion that the initiates drank, was basically a natural LSD brew based on the ergot.
Yep.
And so we were kind of celebrating him and the Eleusinian mystery, and we kind of like in our camp that year, we had this Demeter, we had this huge kind of tree of life, Demeter, and all kinds of things were spontaneously coming together to create this kind of temple, basically. And like Colin is one of our guys, and he's like, oh yeah, I got river sticks for the chandeliers, and he meant like sticks from the river to make the chandeliers, but I'm like, oh, the river sticks, wow, we have this like spontaneous kind of underworld theme like emerging, and then I guess just, I don't know if we need to like clarify for the audience at all. The Eleusinian mysteries are built around like the Demeter, the architecture of the Demeter Persephone myth, where the Persephone is kidnapped by Hades down in hell. And then the world, Demeter is grieving, and the world's in famine. And Zeus is like, everyone's like crying out, and Zeus intercedes, like, look, Hades, you got to give her up. But he tricks her into eating 6 pomegranate seeds, and so this joyous reunion with her mother, with Demeter, and Persephone is the grain goddess, and Demeter is like the goddess, and or the Persephone is the goddess of agriculture, and then because she ate the 6 seeds, like that's like she's got to be in the underworld. But that's just like the super superficial and trivial level of it, and like just the deeper, like mystical, like the just the deep. So like that the seed goes into the ground and dies and is reborn, and just the cycles of life and death and rebirth, and that, like the Christian mysteries of Jehovah and Jesus being swallowed by the world of sin, and his self-sacrificing love regenerates the world. I mean, it's it's an archetypal religious idea, like one of the deepest like idea or insights in the reality process, and like that that Persephone like chose, like just seeing her like work as her active like choice to do this, and choice to go back, and choice, and like she is the queen of the underworld, and and just yeah, and that just that death, rebirth into the love and light, and yeah, just celebrating that. And then we had these artists, and that was the first year that Alex and Allison were coming in, and we didn't know what they were actually going to bring. And they brought that incredible Star Dancers, which I didn't even know was called Star Dancers, like for 3 years. I just thought it was a dance of the dead in the underworld. Right. It's just this like crazy, beautiful, ecstatic dance of in the, I don't know, ancestral plane. And in that year, we'd actually had the founder, or one of the co-founders of Milk and Honey, this Jewish camp, Ali, she had this really traumatic experience the year prior in our camp, and it turns out that pretty much most Jewish friends and pretty much most European people will have an association on the Holocaust when they come into our camp, because we're mass people into the foam, the blasting with foam, and again, if people don't know, like, well, I'll just explain it. So my dad developed firefighting foam for structure and forest fires, and then made a version for Hollywood that me and my brother grew up blasting foam on trees and make it look like it snowed, or in Alka-Seltzer commercial sets, and in Griffith Park in July in 100-degree weather, and all the extras are in parkas pouring like a rain boom is just pouring water on them for 8 hours, and we're like in our swim trunks just blasting foam. And it's a very ecstatic experience when you're like blasting foam on the world. It's just like this, like, it's like a snow day. And yeah, and like, so I guess make this story not as long as it could be. My granddad died in 97, my dad in 98, and just incredible, intense time of life. And we had to shut down my dad's business and just concentrate on the soap business. But then 10 years later, I was like really going through a hard time. And I was like talking to my dad, I'm like, Pop, how'd you do it? How'd you run a business, raise a family, and not lose your mind? And I just remembered the joy we brought the world with the foam. Like we would just go around and just like stow inner city day camps and like old folks' homes, and just always just ecstatic, just incredibly fun, and just really seeing my dad and appreciating his like magicianship and just magic, and like built a unit based on one of his late designs and brought it to Burning Man in 2009. And we were clearing out blocks of people to kind of come in and just get blasted with foam. It's like a way better way, because people bring a lot of fire. There's a lot of pyrotechnics, but not a lot of water, and it's illegal, right? You can't like really have a public shower. So, but luckily with foam, we were self-interpreting this as more of a mist. There's mist regulations, and there's like, the bathing. So we're more of a mist. So, so like but we were totally guerrilla and nice. In the early years of the burn. but yeah, anyway, so fast forward. So now we're like well-established camp. Like we were totally renegade, like till through 2013. We were like off the radar. You know, we just go way out into 2 o'clock back when that was deserted, and just post up. But eventually we became official, and because we didn't want our mist, self-designated mist to be, challenged. Obviously, if we could avoid it.
Trying to fly below the radar.
Yeah, that was yeah. But then all of a sudden we were like a kind of official camp, and in 2013 actually was UFO, and that's when MAP started, or Zendo started camping with us. And, yeah, so in 2016. So anyway, so Ali had this, like, most Jewish friends will have the experience like, whoa, this is love's answer to all that, like this is like, it's crazy, but whoa, this is love's answer to that, this higher octave of being. But turns out some just get caught in the generational trauma and all that ecstatic screams of joy, just like they're just totally triggered and they're just back in there. And it's just like, they're in camp, and it's just they're going through the hardest, most horrible generational trauma. So this lady, Ali, wrote this essay called Seife. And it's a German word, the German word for soap, and play on how unsafe she felt. And this is like really creative 20-page essay about her experience, and just like, whoa, talking to my granddad, and, what your grandson's doing, but she reached out and talked to me, and I brought her through our whole story. And my parents were killed in the Holocaust, and we were a German Jewish soap making family, and my granddad's granddad started making soap in 1858 in a small German town of Laupheim. My granddad got out in the late 20s, more to just do his own thing in life, and came to the U.S. to forge his path in life. His 2 sisters got out. He was increasingly desperate to get his family out. His 2 sisters got out. His parents stayed till it was too late. Factory was Aryanized in 1940. It was a crazy letter from the Nazi who got it to our customers, saying like, you can, we made a form. Our company then was a play actually on the English Made of Foam. It was Made of Form. That was the name of the company. And it was a letter to our customers basically saying, Made of Form has been safely Aryanized, but you can still count on all the same level of quality and customer service as always Paul Hitler. And we have this letter, it's just crazy, for one Deutschmark, the Nazi guy. It was all very legalistic. So anyway, in my granddad's story is like, his parents are killed. My grandmother died when my dad was very young. My granddad was going through immense tragedy, and his response to this was just having these mystical breakthroughs of, within this very dark time of a nuclear armed world and the next Holocaust. If we don't realize our transcendent unity, we're going to all perish. If we don't realize we're all children of the same divine source, and try to show on his labels the commonality that all the spiritual giants are like pointing at this truth.
So was that not to interrupt, David, but was that the sort of like spontaneous inspiration for the sort of the moral ABCs, the all one message?
Yeah.
I was curious because these days it's like we take a substance and we have a breakthrough like that individually. For some people it involves taking a substance, but was that it for your grandfather? It was a dark stress of life. Yeah.
For sure, it was the dark inspiration, and I think he was maybe on a spectrum a bit of he was like a high functioning, but had some level of like mild psychosis maybe, but it was like in the way that like a shaman, like a shamanic, really was able to productively experience the kind of mystical realms and not like totally lose it and bring it back and make just be this incredible power on earth. And didn't need psychedelics to access these states. But when I think when the stress induced, was just pretty intense. He actually got thrown into quote unquote insane asylum in 1947, but not because he was insane. It was more like he was just espousing this kind of like, in this time, like borderline anti-American view of like this one world, all one God faith, united world that sounded, I think, vaguely communist to the authorities, which was like ridiculous because he's actually kind of more way on the libertarian side of things politically. But but yeah, so Ali, so that year I'd gone back to visit our ancestral home and factory, and in Heilbronn. Our name was Heilbronner, and my granddad dropped Hal when he came over. Napoleon made all the Jews like adopt like whatever town's last name when he rolled through. But it, had been at our home and was just really, feeling my granddad and my great aunts and my great grandparents. And the German government actually, or there's an artist that came up with this idea like 15 years ago to memorialize the victims of the Holocaust with bronze plaques in the sidewalks in front of their homes where they lived. And so there's these bronze plaques that have the name Bertolt and Franziska, and then their date of birth, date of deportation, and date of murder. And in the Jewish neighborhoods, you see all these stumble stones. They're called stumble stones. And so I took pictures of those, and then as I left, and was just really feeling like my granddad and great aunts like was playing as kids, and they were very integrated. The bourgeois Jews, very integrated. Germany was actually a pretty integrated place. There's actually memorials to the Jewish veterans of the World War I in the German army. But then, things obviously turned in a horrible way. And just really feeling that, just whoa, just how fucking gnarly. And but then left and like was going around the corner and I was feeling called to this like park, like all these like beautiful trees, and I was like, oh, what's that? And I got out of the car and it was this graveyard, and it was this German graveyard, not a Jewish graveyard. And I was feeling this like solidarity of the German dead with their Jewish brothers and sisters, like this salute, like just saluting each other. And I was just feeling like, whoa, most of these, they're kids. They weren't like Nazis. Like most of these are just kids, and just feeling like the conflagration of the World War, that just this generation of slaughter, like not on all sides, just this fucking sacrifice of this generation, and just feeling it, across Europe, across in Asia, across. And my ex, like she was born in Taipei, and her father was a baby fleeing Chiang Kai-shek on her grandmother's back in the last ship out, and just a huge, sacrifice of this time, and feeling that the great kind of karmic life force that's just like moving through them. They suffered it and bore it and like moved it and then passed it, and then here it is and coming here now, and just like really feeling it, and yeah, just feeling that it's like real, I wouldn't have never ever expected to feel that feeling, and then so for Reformation, so we made a sign, and for Reformation, like all of us, we were dressed up as animals, like kind of like we were kind of restoring the covenant of humanity and nature, and like it's all broken, and like we were the foam, we made it like the Ark of the Covenant from like Raiders Lost Ark kind of. We had like the winged goddess, like on the top. It turns out that's the goddess of death, Mott. So like she's like, holding me. So we made this reverse arc where the animal, and you came into our camp, you had to confess your sins in the animal world. We're all, you wore like a mask, and then took turns. We had these confessional pews set up, and then you go in, and yeah, and it was just, restore the right common, it like a lot of ideas going on. Yeah, so we made a sign of the plaques and said to like all our Jewish, guests, that, anyone who's, experiencing generational trauma, we hold you in our hearts until you move to the present moment of celebration and just, just kind of made a sign. And we were, kind of debating, like, we don't want to like trigger people. We want to do a trigger warning without triggering people, it's just like a kind of dance. So then Ali, so it's like Wednesday, and me and Mia, we just taken some acid. We were like, dosed in. I was like 4, and then someone spilled the ketamine on the floor, and like we all like jumped on it. I was like, oh my gosh, and then like just then like Ali comes up, and like Ali's like, oh yeah, I want to see like what you did, and I'm like, oh whoa, okay, and like, and I'm like, oh man, acid's charging up, and I'm like, I'm walking up with her to the camp and kind of going into our, foam dome, and I'm like, oh shit, like damn, I'm like about to like encounter the ancestors for real. And, is this okay? Is what we're doing, is this like fucking off? Like I'm about to see what she sees, I'm going to see like the chamber and like, is this okay? Or is this like way off, and like, and like came in and in the vision song, well, first it was like the sun's going down. It was just beautiful. My friends on the decks just playing incredible music. Alex and Allison Gray's like, we had this other artist who made these like crystalline torsos with like just all this like cool shit in it, like symbolizing like all the experience of humanity. And like that was like ringing the DJ booth, and like there's like lightning jumping from the Alex and Allison Gray's, dancers to the torsos, and the ancestors, I totally feel them, and I just feel calm joy, just radiating this calm joy, like just we're with you, bro. You go, son. Like we're with you. And just felt this like incredible experience, and like all these heavy, like elders were holding the space, just kind of like in there, and just it was just this really beautiful, powerful incredible experience. But but that's when I realized the power of what Alex and Allison. Like I had a question mark a little bit from afar, like. I don't know why, but that answered the question. Like they're like fucking tapped on the mega level, and they're creating these spaces that you can enter the temple for real, and and then this route to like help them.
Yeah, the temple or the chapel, as sometimes they refer to it.
Oh, the chapel. Yeah. I meant like the metaphor, like just like creating temple. Like a foam dome into this like meganess, and like.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you for sharing. That was an amazing journey.
Yeah. It was a big one.
Yeah.
One thing. Go ahead, Brad. Well, I might change subjects, so I'll hold
yeah. Go for it.
You want to go ahead, Joe?
Yeah.
No, please. No, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, there's something you said a while back that I was really curious about. One of the things we're hoping to learn a little bit about is, constructive capital and how you are as a business owner, and something you said before about having a hard time around 2005 and just kind of seeking guidance on how to, I don't know, feel better as a business owner, in what you've done with your company. There's so much that I find inspiring about it. The execs 5-to-1 comp, being a B Corp, doing the construction of capital boot camp. Like there's so many ways that I think you can inspire people to be better capitalists, frankly. And I was curious, what helped you after that phase in 2005 kind of feel better about the way you were approaching your work?
Yeah, well, it was actually more 2008. So 2008 was when I really started to spin, and just kind of anxiety, generalized, like, getting so bad, like I could barely like interact like at the checkout at Trader Joe's, like it was just like, I was like drinking to deal with it. And my brother was like, he actually came to me. He's like, dude, you need to get on an antidepressant, like, or SSRI, some kind, because he had actually gone through like a really deep, dark depression. And my brother's Mike Bronner, president here, and doesn't mind me sharing it all. Is very open. And in fact, I got a whole story I'll tell you right now. But he, was just kind of giving me the real. Was like, look, and we're like mostly the same, and Zoloft made me want to kill myself, and you're going to want to skip the Paxil because that's what worked for me. And it's like the worst one for side effects. And so I did that, and everything else, yoga and fitness and meditation, and just, getting in the ocean, getting the therapy, and I did Jungian therapy. So I think that, and after a year, I was able to get off Paxil, and that it was what a gnarly thing to get on and off of, dude. It's just like, oh my God. And if you miss a dose, it's like lightning bolts in your head, and it's just nuts.
I have a friend who's described the same thing, lightning bolts in the head. Yeah, that sounds horrendous.
Yeah, but it helped, it helped me stabilize there, and I kind of do the work to kind of be able to exit it. And so, I have and I know, my brother's a case, my ex-mother-in-law, I changed her name to Joy because of Lexapro, she was, so I respect that these, SSRIs can really be helpful for some people some of the time, or, maybe all, I don't know, whatever, but definitely they fail us in so many ways. And so my brother's story is his Paxil just started pooping out actually just a few months ago. And he was just in a deep, dark hole, like really, really struggling. And he's like been very supportive of our psychedelic advocacy and just very much believes in it. But personally speaking, it's not. I mean, he's taking mushrooms at a Cure concert and stuff like that, but it's just not really his thing. And hadn't really availed himself of it in a real therapeutic way. Oh, and I should say, like, I got serious about medicine, around that time, and got way more serious actually in 2018, when I was going through another crisis, and feel like I'm now really, really much more serious about the medicine path and being intentional about it. But anyway, so Enthea is, coincidentally to my brother, like spinning, was I was making the case that we should be a pilot company for Enthea, which is bringing psychedelic assisted therapy to basically companies in a self-insuring package. And we actually been donating to them. And they're starting with ketamine assisted therapy, and then as MDMA and psilocybin assisted therapy, you can basically, they like interface with your employees and interface with the providers, and they just like send you, the company, an invoice every month, and they kind of handle everything. And so we're launching actually in December, but just totally synchronistically, my brother's spinning, and I'm like, okay, hey Mike, like we've identified these providers, like you should do this, And so in October he started doing ketamine therapy, and it's just like he's just completely changed. I mean, it just completely helped him.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, we just had our Toastmasters in our company. He just gave a speech. Like we have this like sacred Sangha that like fronts as our Toastmasters and in Bronner's, and we just share on the reel. But yeah, he just, for his speech, he just shared all about this experience, and it's awesome because at our holiday party, we're not going to announce this benefit to our staff, and it just had my brother. We've already had like a few other people that kind of informally helped sponsor. Like we had one of our main cats go through Sage, the ketamine program at Sage up in the Bay Area, and just get huge benefit. So that's all. It's just this incredible story to yeah. So I was telling, I guess, kind of answering how I got through my thing, but just also telling the story of my brother. Just so it's awesome. Yeah. So we get to bring this psychedelic therapy, and my brother now, I'm like, dude, I'm going to be kind of in the back. You sell it,
he's the new evangelist for it.
Well, and way more compelling than I am, right? I'm like obviously a little questionable. I got questionable motivations, maybe, but he's all about the therapeutic benefit.
Awesome,
that's great.
Awesome.
I'm just happy to hear that it had such a positive impact for him.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing. It's like really incredible.
That's also like the kind of benefit from a company perspective to offer that, I don't know, no more than 4 or 5 years ago, I couldn't believe would ever be possible in our lifetime, but it's very much a sign of the times in a positive way.
Yeah. And, and I wouldn't have even been that enthused to offer it, because I guess I had this attitude, I'm on the board of MAPS, and like, like ketamine is kind of like low on the totem pole, it's like fun to party with or whatever, but wasn't like, I didn't take it like that seriously as like a adjunct to therapy. And but then what was starting to have some much more important experiences with ketamine, and really respecting it, and just going really, really far actually. But I signed up for a ketamine therapist training course that like I'm actually in the psychedelic therapy training course called Anka. If you go to psychedelicmedicine.net, it's this guy Leela, who's Izzy Ishmael Ali's cousin. Leela, he's super rad, and it's a school in a Claudio Naranjo kind of vibration, but really bridging shamanic with kind of Western psychedelic. It's pretty incredible. But this ketamine therapist training was outside of that, at the Pradi Institute in Colorado. But I went through it with my partner, and it was just so incredible. It was just so, like, I'd never done an IM dose of ketamine. Just wow. It's amazing medicine when approached intentionally. And so I got much more enthusiastic about this. It's not just like, because we kind of like, oh, the FDA is not letting our therapists do an MDMA session. So we're like, okay, what's next best? Holotropic breath work or ketamine, but now I'm like, wow, that's great. Do an IM dose of ketamine therapy, you'll have a real good idea how altered states work, and and how to work with that in a therapeutic context. And so I got much more like enthusiastic myself about ketamine therapy, and that, for a while I used to think like, well, it's a bridge until we get MDMA and psilocybin, and and then it'll go, it'll just be like the whatever one, that's not that great. But now I totally see like this is going to be definitely part of the therapeutic, allies for forever. I mean, it's just such an important one.
Yeah.
It's
An
really
ally.
important
I like
time.
that. I like that distinction or attribution to it, compared to a lot of other ways that pharmaceutically, things are treated. Don't feel like allies, but it seems to have an opportunity to be an ally for your brother and many other people. So it's great to see it being explored and seeing it applied.
Yeah. No, yeah. So it's really awesome. It's cool. And oh my gosh. And his second ketamine treatment was all about getting over the whatever. I mean, like we're an amazing family company, and my mom's a CFO, and my brother's president. I'm cosmic engagement officer, and my brother-in-law is a COO. And my brother had this amazing experience of just pure love for my mom, like just getting past like all, how psychedelics can just elevate you past the whatevers. You just get that pure love vision. And and he immediately called my mom up after. So my mom, another important decision maker in the company, now, went from a skeptic to a total cheerleader of ketamine therapy. And yeah.
That's great.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's, I think, when you came up on my radar, as being a supporter of this research several years ago, I'm like, the soap company, like I just like, what's the connection? But I just like, it's so great to see that not only are you supporting this work financially, but also like running the organization in a way that is consistent with like the beliefs, that you have, that also cause you to support this important work. And like Brad was alluding to, some of the, like, this I think is a really important thing, capping the executive pay at like 5x the base pay, basically. Is that still more or less the way that works?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, that's it to me. It's seemingly very important. I think one of the biggest like toxic factors in our modern world is people having like way too much money accumulating in like one or two people, and I mean, it just power corrupts, and money is just a proxy for power. So it's this kind of attitude like, why does one person need this insane amount of wealth? And the other place where I see you doing this is like, I read something, I think the most up-to-date number I had was like 2016, the company donated $8.7 million to charities, which was 41% of profits before taxes. That is just an insane amount, like proportionally to like the total profits before taxes even. It's an incredible contribution. Can you speak to any of the recent numbers on that? Because I know you've been doing that consistently for years now.
Yeah, right on. And I just shot a note I'll be a little late to the 4:00 call. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, just let us know. Do you have how much time to wrap up in like 5 or 10?
15, which says say we go.
Great. Yeah, we'll wrap. Cool. We'll wrap. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. I mean, I wish we could just keep going.
Yeah, this is fun.
Let's see.
I guess I wanted to call attention to just the charitable contributions and how you really put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, and just with the structure of the company and the way you encourage people to
it's the most crucial thing we've done is cap that, so that I could early on see what our trajectory was, and that kind of expenditure rise in the median income, just that's what happens for people. And like we're not going to be buying yachts and doing that kind of crap. We're going to set, no matter, how big we get, we're going to not make any more than 5 times our lowest fully vested position, and, dedicate our profits to making the better world in all the different ways. And, and obviously my personal passion project is integration of psychedelic medicine. And I feel like it's most resonant and on point with my granddad's vision of a, united human race that's living in harmony and a sustainable relationship with nature and each other, and how we're going to actually do that, and psychedelically healing and opening up the global citizenry. I mean, it's not magic bullet, but we got some big other structural systemic problems, but just that's obviously I think a crucial way to get after it. And and it's just like a privilege to be able to do that. And last year with COVID, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, like, the source soap and sanitizer sales just blew up, and we were able to give 15 million. And a lot of that went into Oregon, that powered both the 109 and 110 campaigns. So 109 was integrating psilocybin therapy, 110 was ending the drug war and a treatment first approach, and that, that addiction is not a crime, it's a health issue, and further traumatizing addicts with arrest and incarceration, saddling them with a felony. I mean, this is obviously not the right approach. And so, and then, what's better for substance use disorder or people struggling is some psychedelic therapy. So, doing that 1-2 punch. So we're able to really pour resources into both those campaigns. And then into the DC decriminalize nature campaign, we're helping power that one as well.
Nice.
Those are definitely beneficiaries of this year is not quite nearly as crazy as last year, but, we're still able to, we still have the same model, and we're giving $1 million a year to MAPS, and just supporting a lot of the other organizations and efforts in the field.
Amazing. Yeah, so important.
Adding to the number of things just to be grateful for that you're doing with your company and with your family and all the decisions that you're making. It's awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Right on.
Speaking of COVID, I wanted to ask you about, or just call attention to your policy around vaccines, encouraging your employees to get vaccines. I read that you're offering a bonus, $1,000 bonus to the employees that do choose to get vaccinated, sort of the carrot approach as opposed to the stick approach, like we see with mandate, or I think Delta Airlines is doing something where if you don't get vaccinated, you have to pay them, or you give up, some portion of your salary that goes toward your increased healthcare costs, or cost to the company of potentially being out sick and things. So I can understand they have to recoup their cost, but also I really like your approach of, offering that incentive, like in a positive way to encourage that positive outcome.
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, that's, the way I look at it is, first of all, like we gave kind of COVID, we're giving a COVID windfall bonus already. So it's just like, we're already kind of giving, we gave $5,000 extra to everybody last year. And so it's kind of a portion of that, let's just incentivize people here, but in a way that, look, I personally do believe that this is a safe and effective way of combating this, contagion. And, but, I'm also a fan of people who don't buy into consensual reality. I obviously don't, in respect to the drug war, race, or genetic engineering major food crops, tolerate massive amounts of herbicides, which, obviously dominant culture, so, people standing strong against, and, understandably being very skeptical of like pharma and whatever. And so I get that. And so if, people don't want to, take the $1,000 incentive, then that's fine. And I've got good friends who don't, and, we just, the only thing we're trying to do is not interface in the public if you're not vaccinated. It's fine here, like within Bronner's, but if you're public facing, and then we just kind of like reconfigure, no one's losing their job or getting docked or penalized or anything. It's just like kind of reconfiguring things, and then, just making it flow and try to keep it all cool. And you don't want to like, I don't know. I think just mandating it creates just a lot of problems. It's not the way to do it.
And it's interesting, you have the ability to make some of these decisions as a privately held company. You can do whatever you want practically. So, you can take care of people by giving them a bonus that in a different situation, if you had, to speak to your shareholders, they might vote you out of your position if you give all, what they think is their money.
That's totally, man. That's it. That's the problem when companies go public, or you bring in non-mission aligned investors, and they have the right to sue you for not maximizing the fiduciary return. That's the sole and only purpose that a for-profit corporation exists. And if you're not doing that, you can be sued. Now, we are a benefit corp. We did reorganize, or there's nothing really. It's a benefit corp is just an overlay of a C or S corp, but it does enable you to protect giving away your profit. So, like, hypothetically, if we did have to sell to, in an emergency, we had to sell equity to whoever, and that person became problematic, like a benefit corp actually allows us to have purposes other than maximizing fiduciary return for shareholders. So that, that that's a corporate form. I mean, it doesn't mandate, the form doesn't mandate you be awesome, and it can be just a greenwash kind of veneer, and often unfortunately is, but it does actually give you that protection if you do have misalignment with whoever's an investor in your company,
other stakeholders.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. And going back to what you said about respecting people who have that view of like anti-consensus reality or just questioning things. And I like to talk about contrarianism as opposed to skepticism, because I think people are often not actually skeptical. They just reject the status quo because it's the status quo. So it's a very nuanced thing to kind of navigate that. And I think it's important in this field too, because we're in this like sort of like alternative view field of of this medicine. And there's a lot of, we seem to be rife with people who have beliefs that are counter to the consensus reality just by default, like just anti everything that anti institutions basically. And it's like we need institutions to develop like important medicines, and we need the institution of MAPS, for example, to like foster this new paradigm over 30 plus years. Can you speak to that at all? How we can individually sort of like navigate that, and maybe because you seem to be doing a good job of walking this line between like, these are my views, well researched and well informed, but also not pushing up against too hard people who have alternative viewpoints, and not offending them or not having a war about it. Like, how can we bring people under the tent and communicate about these things without being at war with each other?
Yeah, well, I will say it was received pretty controversially in some quarters of the anti-vax movement that lit up our social pages. They're accusing us of bribing our employees, and okay.
Wow. Yeah.
But just like, I think again, like just respecting that, like, I respect strong views that are held, so long as they're not like, alt-right, borderline fascist wackoness. It's, like we were just saying, like we're pretty contrarian in our, as a movement, I think Rick is a great example. He's kind of, he's like Obi-Wan Kenobi on the Death Star, like he's just can work this system really well, but also like saying like, look, that, as like institutionally bureaucratic and lame and off as, FDA and regulatory bodies can be, and government can be, and corporations can be, that there's also, we don't live in a fascist state, and that it isn't just lip service, that objective scientific data will drive policy. And, obviously that's more or less true depending who's in power, but Rick had faith, and that if we generate, the outcomes that we have, that we could move things through the FDA approval process, which I was a little skeptical about, when he first was saying that, but, he's proved he's right. And we're like on the verge of it, and it shifted the culture. I mean, just the whole cultural conversation. I mean, everything we're doing in other avenues, like via political ballot or legislatively or at the city council level. I mean, it's all because of this incredible shift in the culture that these clinical trials have created, and all the positive momentum with, FDA, breakthrough status, and, Michael Pollan and all the incredible media. Yeah.
Totally. Something you said before I like that stuck with me was reconfiguring. So instead of being, but like contrarian in all ways, like accepting a degree of the institution or the system that we're in, but then like to reconfigure, there's like a sense of humility in that. It's, we can have a ripple in this, and we exist, and we can affect change. But by like standing and being obstinate, how far is that going to get us individually or collectively? But to aspire to reconfigure in ways that are going to be incrementally beneficial, that have a ton of respect for that.
Yeah, right on. I mean, it's like we have to have that inside movement kind of game, kind of playing a political, you got to be on that policy process, and just like, it's frustrating, and as that can be, and then we also got Burning Man, and where we get to celebrate our culture. I like kind of like the gay, like LGBTQ, like trajectory of, having the inside, lawyers and politics, just working the system, Harvey Milk, but then also the pride parades and leather bars and just like going, so that, doing both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like psychedelic culture is like kind of in some ways paralleling and mirroring that trajectory.
Totally. Yeah. We've been coming out of the psychedelic closet for several years now, and
Yeah.
it's really becoming mainstream, and people can talk about it much more freely than they ever did, which I think goes a lot toward like setting the substrate that we need to be able to, actually make the changes like legislatively and otherwise. Yeah.
And for us, that's a big motivation of this show and why we do what we do. So I don't know. I want to be conscious of your time. I appreciate you taking some extra minutes to spend with us. I feel like that's a good landing spot for this conversation. Man, what a world. That was a thrill. Thank you so much.
Yeah, right on, guys. Yeah.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, David. Take care, man. Good luck with everything.
Right on.
Cheers.
Right on, guys. Yeah.
This is Entheogen. Elevate the conversation. I'm Joe.
I'm Brad.
And I'm Kevin.
Please support Entheogen by making a donation on Patreon. Become a patron for as little as $1. Pledge just $3 or more and get early access to new episodes, plus exclusive patron-only features. Head over to entheogenshow.com and click on support. And thanks again.